It's wonderful having a son on the homestead to help out. That's the biggest deal of all, when you have your family right there to help. Rivers, and there's times where the tide was high and got hypothermia crossing the river one time, and truly miss that, sharing the things I know and sharing my adventures, my experience. But
he survived being trampled by an ox, crushed ribs in a blizzard, and the brutal silence of the Alaskan wilderness. But Otto Kilcher's most terrifying challenge didn't come from nature. It came from within. For years, audiences watched Otto as the heart and soul of Alaska, the last frontier, a man of grit, humor, and mechanical genius. He wasn't just a reality TV character. He was the living embodiment of survival, the man who could fix a tractor with duct tape and repurpose junk into life-saving tools. But as seasons passed, things began to shift. Otto's presence dwindled. Rumors of his death spread like wildfire, and fans were left guessing what really happened to the man who had once seemed invincible. The truth is far more complex than any episode could reveal. Behind his calm smile and clever quips, Otto was waging silent battles against injuries, time, and a reality show that may have demanded too much. From his near-fatal injury in the snow to his quiet retreat from the limelight, Otto's story is one of pain, perseverance, and a fierce love for his family and the land he calls home. As we trace his journey from rugged homesteader to reluctant TV icon, one question echoes louder than the rest. Was the price of fame worth the cost? Because what the cameras didn't show is where the real story begins. Before the fame, before the cameras, Otto Kilcher was already a legend among those who knew him. A man capable of outthinking a snowstorm, mending machines with nothing but grit, and facing each day in the wild with a calm intensity. On Alaska, the last frontier, he stood out not just for his practical skills, but for the emotional heartbeat he brought to the show. Fans admired his ability to turn chaos into order, to remain steady even when generators failed or livestock scattered during a storm. He was the wise, chuckling mentor of the homestead, offering lessons on resilience with a spark in his eye and a wrench in his hand. But that image, as authentic as it was, masked the burden of being the backbone of an entire family's survival. Otto wasn't just fixing engines, he was holding together generations of legacy, the fragile threads of a self-sufficient lifestyle, and a reputation that became larger than life. Every problem fell on his shoulders. Every winter threatened the livelihood he'd built from nothing. And as the show spotlighted his triumphs, it rarely showed the toll it took, the exhaustion that crept into his bones, the quiet pain he ignored, and the cracks that began to form in a man known for never breaking. But to truly understand what made Otto Kilcher who he is, we have to rewind to a time before reality TV, when survival was not filmed but lived. Otto Kilcher was born on April 19, 1952, in the remote town of Homer, Alaska, a place where winter wasn't just a season, it was a way of life. His parents, Ruth and Yule Kilcher, had escaped the turbulence of war-torn Europe, trading Switzerland's mountains for Alaska's untamed wilds in search of peace, freedom, and a fresh start. They didn't find comfort, they found challenge. The Kilchers lived off the land with no modern conveniences, forging a life where survival depended entirely on skill, endurance, and grit. Otto was the sixth of 8 children, and from the moment he could walk, he was working. There were no easy days. With limited food and bitter cold, everyone contributed, hauling water, chopping wood, tending animals, and building what they couldn't buy. Otto grew up learning that broken things didn't get replaced, they got fixed, and if they couldn't be fixed, they were reimagined. That mindset shaped his brilliance with machines and tools, a kind of mechanical wizardry born not from luxury but necessity. And through it all, he developed not just strength, but ingenuity. While other kids played, Otto was repairing engines and helping build shelters. The wild didn't scare him, it raised him. It taught him the unforgiving beauty of nature and the brutal price of mistakes. That early hardship carved a path not toward comfort, but toward mastery of the frontier. And as he grew older, the boy who once foraged for firewood would become the man everyone turned to when the world went cold. But what happens when that self-reliant spirit is suddenly put on public display? Otto Kilcher never wanted to be famous. When Alaska: The Last Frontier first aired in 2011, it wasn't because he sought attention. It was because producers saw something magnetic in the quiet brilliance of his daily life. What began as a simple window into homesteading life exploded into a national obsession. Suddenly, Otto's routines, welding tractor parts, guiding his children, battling the cold, became primetime entertainment. Viewers were hooked by his no-nonsense attitude, deadpan humor, and uncanny ability to solve problems with a kind of MacGyver meets Mountain Man flair. But while the audience laughed and learned, Otto quietly shouldered the weight of it all. Every episode demanded more work, more drama, more visibility. Fame crept in like a slow frost, unnoticed until it changed the landscape. For someone who valued privacy, the shift was jarring. camera crews documented breakdowns and blizzards that once passed in solitude. And though Otto stayed true to himself, never craving limelight or luxury, the attention placed pressure on his family and exposed their most vulnerable moments. The show gave him recognition, yes, but it also took something. His quiet days became content. His injuries became footage. Still, he played along, because for Otto, duty to family always came first. But fame has a cost, and Otto's bill was coming due. Because while fans saw the myth, his body and spirit were beginning to feel the toll of the spotlight. Otto's legacy isn't built on machines or homesteads alone. It's forged in the relationships he's built, the children he's raised, and the love he's fought to preserve through life's chaos. His personal life, though rarely spotlighted on TV, tells a story of quiet heartbreak, resilience, and unexpected romance. His first marriage to Olga von Ziegazar remains shrouded in mystery, a short-lived union that faded quietly, leaving few traces beyond its role in Otto's journey through early adulthood. His second marriage to Sharon McCamey was more publicly significant, producing 2 sons, Levi and Evan, both of whom would later become vital parts of the Kilcher legacy. Though their marriage ended, Otto's bond with his sons only deepened, with both inheriting his passion for craftsmanship and survival, eventually joining him on screen to carry on the family's way of life. But the turning point came when Otto met Charlotte, a marine biologist from Northern California, who left behind comfort and convenience to volunteer in Alaska following the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Their shared passion for protecting the environment sparked more than camaraderie. It ignited a love that would last decades. Despite being a vegetarian, Charlotte adapted to the harsh Alaskan lifestyle, learning to raise animals, tend gardens, and embrace the rugged world Otto called home. Together, they raised their son August and nurtured Charlotte's son Tori, creating a blended family grounded in hard work and unconditional support. Their marriage, rooted in respect and survival, became a cornerstone of Otto's world, one that gave him strength even as storms, both literal and emotional, tested them. And while fans admired the tough love Otto showed on the homestead, it was Charlotte's unwavering partnership that quietly kept him standing through his darkest hours. For years, viewers watched Otto Kilcher defy the odds, fixing broken-down equipment in sub-zero temps, calming chaos with a smirk, and mentoring his children with timeless wisdom. But what they didn't see were the moments between takes, the tired eyes, the slowing pace, and the silent suffering that crept in behind the scenes. As Otto aged, his body began whispering warnings, sore joints, quiet groans, and unspoken aches that became louder with each passing season. But in a lifestyle where there's no pause button, he pushed through as he always had. That relentless drive, while inspiring, masked a deeper issue: the unsustainable toll of living for both survival and the spotlight. Fans began to notice the changes: Otto taking longer breaks, skipping scenes, or being absent altogether. Rumors swirled about his health, his mortality, and whether he'd quietly bowed out of the very show that had made him a household name. Yet behind the camera, the truth was more complex. Producers, eager to keep the series fresh, shifted focus to younger Kilchers, while Otto, once the centerpiece, became a supporting player in his own story. Family tensions bubbled under the surface, as the pressure to perform met the harsh demands of real-life injuries. The show may have been about living off-grid, but nothing felt more artificial than ignoring Otto's decline. And as fans grew uneasy, sensing something was off, one terrifying event would shatter the illusion for good, when Otto's strength finally gave way in the most brutal way imaginable. In a single devastating moment, Otto Kilcher's legendary resilience was put to the ultimate test, not by a storm, not by equipment failure, but by an animal he'd cared for, and a storm that masked its fear. It was season 11, and Otto was doing what he always did, protecting his homestead during a brutal Alaskan snowstorm. But as whiteout conditions swept across the land, a massive ox spooked by the blizzard turned on Otto with terrifying force. It charged, knocking him to the ground, and trampled his ribs, crushing them beneath its hooves. He fell into the snow, bleeding and gasping for air, as the wind howled around him like a predator. His radio had failed minutes before. He was utterly alone, broken and buried in a freezing grave of white. Hours passed before a neighbor spotted a trail of blood and raised the alarm. Emergency responders fought their way through chest-deep snow to reach him, strapping his battered body to a makeshift sled and dragging him to a waiting helicopter. Airlifted through the storm to a hospital miles away. Otto's condition was critical. Fans watching the episode saw a brief mention Otto is receiving medical care, but nothing more. No footage of the rescue, no details of the trauma. Behind the scenes, the Kilcher family was shattered. Charlotte wept silently in the hospital halls. Levi and August tried to stay strong, but were visibly broken. Discovery sanitized the moment, leaving fans with questions and a sense of betrayal. Otto had nearly died, and yet the show moved on, as if the heart of the homestead hadn't just stopped beating. But Otto wasn't finished. not by a long shot. For most people, a trauma like Otto's would be the end of the story, but for him, it became a new beginning, though not one without pain. Recovery was grueling. Fractured ribs meant every breath felt like swallowing shards of glass. Days were spent immobilized, nights in agony. Yet Otto's spirit, though shaken, refused to break. He leaned on his family. His sons took over the hardest labor on the homestead, and Charlotte never left his side. Fans, unaware of the true severity of the injury, flooded social media with love, posting thousands of messages, prayers, and videos. Otto, ever the stoic, broke the silence with a dry Instagram post. High tide, snowstorm, no problem, trying to downplay the ordeal with humor. But those close to him knew better. Something had changed. The man who once cracked jokes while welding in 30 degrees now spoke slower, moved with caution, and carried a deeper, quieter energy. As weeks turned into months, Otto slowly returned to the homestead, not for the cameras, but for his soul. He fixed engines again. He walked with his sons. He showed up not because he had to, but because the land was part of his identity. His recovery wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual. The pain had left scars, but it also deepened his understanding of his limits, of mortality, and of what truly mattered. But while Otto healed, the show itself was beginning to fray, and the question now was, could Alaska: The Last Frontier survive without its true north? When Otto returned to the homestead, fans expected a triumphant comeback, a powerful on-screen moment where the heart of Alaska: The Last Frontier reclaimed his place. But that moment never came. Instead, Otto's presence faded, not with a dramatic farewell or a heartfelt montage, but through subtle edits, recycled voiceovers, and carefully selected flashbacks that made it seem like he was still around. In truth, he was stepping back, and Discovery didn't want viewers to notice. Ratings had started to shift, and the producers were already pivoting toward the younger generation. Levi, Avon, August, who were all capable, but didn't carry the same gravity Otto brought. Behind the scenes, the family struggled to adjust. Charlotte called the episode featuring Otto's injury painful to watch, not just because of the trauma, but because it felt hollow, sanitized, disconnected from the rawness of what actually happened. Viewers noticed. The hammering stopped. Otto's gravelly voice no longer filled the air. Fans began asking questions online, some even accusing the show of using Otto's near-death moment for drama without giving him the dignity of proper coverage. Tension reportedly grew between Ivan and August, each pulled in different directions as the producers searched for a new face of the franchise. In Homer, locals whispered that the Kilchers had changed, that fame had taken something from them. And though Otto occasionally appeared, he was no longer the guiding force. His scenes felt like echoes, and in that silence, fans began to realize what they were missing wasn't just Otto the character, it was Otto the man, the soul of the series. The show moved on, but something essential had been lost. Otto Kilcher's near-death experience peeled back the carefully constructed layers of reality television and exposed something far more uncomfortable: the exploitation lurking beneath the entertainment. This wasn't a scripted action scene. It wasn't a moment manufactured for suspense. Otto had genuinely been crushed, alone and close to death, and the footage was edited, scored with dramatic music, and delivered to millions as content. What had once felt like an honest portrayal of homesteading life now rang hollow. The line between storytelling and sensationalism had been crossed. Otto didn't ask for sympathy. He didn't even complain publicly, but fans felt it. The injury changed something fundamental in the way people viewed the show. It wasn't just about axes and snow anymore. It was about what happens when reality becomes ratings. While Otto quietly recovered, the producers moved on. But many fans didn't. They noticed the shift in tone, the lack of heart, the way episodes felt more polished but less authentic. The real Alaska, with its danger, hardship, and moments of profound silence, was replaced with montages and forced drama. Otto had once been the anchor that kept the show grounded. Without him, The Last Frontier started to feel more like a simulation of wilderness living than the real thing. Fans weren't tuning in to watch pretty shots of mountains. They wanted wisdom, warmth, and the raw truth that Otto brought effortlessly. And in his absence, the show's soul seemed to dim. The legacy he built, decades of resilience, humor, and brutal honesty, became a mirror to the audience. What are we really watching? And at what cost does reality become entertainment? Despite all the physical and emotional trials, Otto Kilcher has emerged on the other side, not just as a survivor, but as a symbol of quiet strength, resilience, and authentic living. As of 2024, Otto's estimated net worth stands at $4 million, a figure earned through years of sweat, sacrifice, and skills that most people today wouldn't dare try. Long before the cameras ever showed up, Otto had been a machinist and mechanic, fixing equipment and keeping the Kilcher homestead running with whatever scrap metal or busted part he could find. He didn't just create tools, he created value. Add to that his ownership of extensive land in Alaska, a precious and finite resource, and his long-standing role on a hit reality series, and Otto's financial legacy was quietly built while others sought spotlight. But unlike many who let wealth change them, Otto remained untouched by vanity. He never left the homestead, never moved into a mansion, never bought a fleet of cars. He still milks cows, raises chickens, welds broken axles, and mentors his sons with the same fire he had decades ago. Money didn't soften him, it reinforced his belief that the true richness of life lies in purpose and connection, not in possessions. He has stayed fiercely loyal to his values, to Charlotte, and to the land that raised him. Though his appearances on TV have faded, his influence hasn't. Fans still speak of him with reverence. And while Otto may never again be the main face of the show, he's already etched into the legacy of Alaska, not as a reality star, but as a real man who never stopped fighting for the life he believed in. But what, in the end, does that legacy mean for all of us? Otto Kilcher's story isn't one of glamour, scripted drama, or hollow celebrity. It's a story of survival, of integrity, and of a man who faced the wild outside and within, and never let either break him. From his harsh beginnings in Homer, through broken marriages, blistering winters, and brutal injuries, to unexpected fame and the pressures of reality television, Otto never lost sight of who he was. He didn't just fix engines. He held together a way of life that modern society is slowly forgetting. He taught millions that resilience isn't loud, that strength isn't showy, and that love for land and family is worth more than ratings or riches. His disappearance from Alaska, the last frontier, may have left a void, but it also left a powerful message. Real life can't be edited. It bleeds, it breaks, it rebuilds. And Otto Kilcher, through every silent struggle and quiet comeback, proved that reality doesn't need to be scripted to inspire. It just needs to be lived with grit, with grace, and with a heart full of purpose. If you've ever wondered what true strength looks like, you won't find it in fame. You'll find it in a man like Otto, still working the land, still fixing what's broken, and still showing us all what it means to truly endure. Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is based on publicly available information, viewer observations, and reported events. While every effort has been made to present facts accurately, some content may include personal opinions, interpretations, or speculation. Any references to health issues, injuries, or family matters are respectfully presented without intent to defame, mislead, or exploit. All individuals mentioned are entitled to their privacy, and this content does not claim to represent their personal views. This video is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or officially connected to Otto Kilcher, the Kilcher family, Discovery Channel, or Alaska: The Last Frontier. Viewer discretion is advised.